So we're starting out tonight. Lucy is temperamental. I don't know if she's having a shine, if she's seeing some aura around me, if she's just upset tonight. What's going on, Lucy? She's looking at me real funny. I got to tell you that. She's chirping. Lucy's chirping at me. On this, the 29th day of July 2020, the era of COVID is upon us. And here we are. Come on, Lucy. You want to come over here? You want to come breathe so everyone can hear you breathing heavy? So my name is Dr. Mark Jesinoski. This is the Wizard Podcast. I've been put on notice that I don't talk about that enough, and I don't say all the things I need to say to make sure people understand and know what this is all about. So this is the Wizard Podcast, and it's the Wizard Podcast because infantry Marines tend to call psychologists wizards. And I've had the privilege of working with a lot of infantry Marines and a lot of other combat veterans and people who serve, and it just stuck at some point. So this podcast is about being honest. It's about exploring our mind and our body and all the crazy stories we tell and the attachments we make and the things that we wrap our lives around, the things we wrap our perception around, the tangles that we get ourselves into and the things we get angry about and we get hurt over. And Lucy is just going crazy tonight. So I adopted Lucy, I guess you could say, in Utah, my last year of graduate school. In 2007, I worked at a house out in this beautiful, absolutely beautiful area called Paradise, Utah, by the Little Bear Creek, where my buddy Charlie and I used to go fly fishing all the time. And there was this place I worked at. It was a residential treatment facility for young women with eating disorders. And, it was a rural place with gravel roads. And one day, there was a little puppy walking down one of those gravel roads, and these young women I worked with happened to find her. She had a little rope around her neck that she had chewed loose. And I think that she was supposed to be like a sheep herding dog out there in the open pasture between the beautiful mountains of Logan, Utah, or the Cache Valley in Utah. And so that was Lucy, and I took Lucy home because I was a psychologist in training my last year of graduate school. And I was remodeling a house, and I had a dog named Melvin, also a big, beautiful black lab. Rest his soul. So I brought Lucy home with the intention of finding her a home, and very quickly fell in love with her. So Melvin left us a few years back, but Lucy is still here, panting away, getting fussy. I think she's just fussy because I haven't been home all day, and now she wants some love. She wants some pats. Lucy has swam in the Colorado River, the Crystal, the Sugar, the Snake, the Green. She has dabbled in the Pacific. She's been to Minnesota. She's been to South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Utah, Arizona, California, Nevada. So Lucy's lived a good life, and I'm really happy about that. And here she is in perhaps she'll lay down and quiet. If not, you'll hear Lucy for a while tonight. So I was having a thought before I hit record. And what's interesting is I usually have my most honest thoughts before I hit record. Because I tend to not hit record until I'm in a place of inspiration or there's something I really feel like I want to explore. And the most honest moments are the moments leading up to the record where I'm just kind of allowing my thoughts to be open and allowing my sensations to be open and being really honest with myself and exploring things. And I'm super impressed by people. There's very, very few people, like I would say very few people. I think it's part of why the Joe Rogan podcast has become so what it is because I do think he's just being very himself in the moment, very honest. There's an honesty that comes out across the spectrum of what he does, and I think people really admire that. What I notice is when I hit record, there's still a sense of, okay, these words are being stored. You're accountable for what you say. People will judge what you say. And there's a profound lesson in there. Because do we alter what we say? Do we allow the fear of judgment to alter what we say? And of course, the answer is yes, we do all the time. People manage impressions all the time. Part of that is logical and strategic. Part of that is if you tell the truth at work, you might get fired. You tell the truth in politics, you might get fired. That's really sad and real that sometimes telling the truth requires us to face our fear. It requires us to face rejection. It requires us to face judgment. How many people distort the truth, distort reality for themselves so they can play a certain role, they can be part of a certain club, they can be part of a certain thing, and feel safe, feel like they belong, feel important, become an important part of some group or club or organization or university or party. Become a part of something because I know this thing and I'm good at this thing and my identity is this thing and my truth revolves around this thing that I have allied myself with. So telling the truth is really hard for a lot of people because telling the truth may result in a loss of employment, a loss of a relationship, a change in employment, a change in a relationship, a shift in the life that we've become accustomed to, that we've become comfortable with, that we hold on to. I'm this thing and I live in this place and these are my people and this is my this and this is my that. And so the truths we tell revolve around the attachments we make and the way those attachments serve our existence in some ways. We lost Lucy. She's in the night. She escaped. Lucy is the truth. That much I know. But yeah, telling the truth is tough, man. Being honest is tough. Being honest with ourselves is so tough. How honest, really, do you think you are with yourself? If you listen to your quiet thoughts and you're in your quiet space, how much can you say, what do I really believe? What do I really hold on to? What do I really know? What do I really know? I think it's really good to study things. I think it's really good to read books by people who have taken it upon themselves to walk a path of truth, to walk a path of pain, to walk a path of suffering, to walk a path of telling the truth in the context of a world that did not perhaps want to hear it or see it. I think it's good to read the words to the best of our ability that these people have left us, because they've been willing to go for the truth in the context of an environment that ultimately killed a lot of them. And we could weave in Plato's allegory of the cave here, and maybe I'll just reference it so you can go read about it or look it up or inform me about what I don't know about it. But Plato's allegory of the cave is essentially a story of knowing, a story of truth, a story of reality. Imagine you were born and raised in a cave and you were chained to the wall, and your only perception of reality were images projected on the wall of that cave. In Plato's time, it was just the image of light, a fire projecting basically shadows on the wall. What if that was your only perception of reality? And then one day, one of you breaks free and you find your way out of the cave and you feel the sun on your face and you see the blue sky and you see green trees and you see creatures of all sorts and you don't even know what they are. You've never seen this before. And it blows your mind. It blows your mind. And you run back in the cave and you're like, I have seen this thing. It's blue. I don't have a word for it. I can't even explain to you what I have seen. But there's stuff out there that's vastly more beautiful and complex than what you're experiencing in this cave. But everyone in the cave that's chained to the wall says, "What the fuck are you talking about? Are you crazy? Of course you're crazy. You ran down the black hole there that goes in that way that we've never been down, and you're coming back here and telling us there's a thing out there that's bright and it's light and it's blue and it's green and there's things walking around. Are you insane? This is reality, man. You're fucking crazy. We're killing you. We're getting rid of you. We're going to be hostile towards you." That's how it works. That's how it works when people aspire to tell the truth. Because the people in the cave have a vested interest in living in that cave. The cave has become them. So they are quite hostile to anyone that decides to venture out of that cave. But I think anyone who's wise would be wise to consider the words of those who have ventured out of that cave. It's scary. It's difficult. It's hard to say, I wonder if I'm being fully honest with myself. I wonder if I'm really telling myself the truth. Do I actually believe in that belief? Do I actually believe in that thing that I'm so adamantly in tune with, that I've aligned myself with, that I tell everyone this is the truth, and I post it on my Facebook, and I text people about it, and I get passionate about it, and I get angry about it, and I read articles about it by people I don't know and websites I've never heard of. It's really hard to be in the cave and to contemplate that the cave may be an illusion. It just may not be the thing. It might be a thing inside of a thing. What would it be like to just take a breath and ask yourself a few questions? How am I distorting my reality? What is reality? Lucy's back. She's got the answers for us. I'm going to go let her in. Come on, Lucy. What is reality? How am I distorting my reality? What are the bullshit stories I'm telling myself so I can sleep at night? So I can be a part of a club, a group, so I can think I'm the dude, I'm the man, and I can feel special in the context of this thing that's completely and totally made up. It's completely and totally made up so we can control something, manipulate something. And hey, there's a lot of people in those positions. My thought is, in order to allow yourself to be in those positions, you have to be in the cave to quite a degree, because you have to believe there's nothing other than the game. The game is all there is. There's a nihilism in politics. There's a nihilism to politics and to power and to all the games people play, because you have to believe that it's all bullshit. You have to believe there's nothing bigger. You have to believe, you have to truly actually believe that the game is what it is, because to play the game, you have to deny reality. You have to deny yourself. You can't live in reality and be a hardcore Republican. You can't live in reality and be a hardcore Democrat. Not to take it to the politics. It's just a place that my mind goes. I'm just giving you the honest thoughts that are coming out of my mind in the moment. So to fully play the game, you have to live in denial. There's a certain nihilism to it. So I think there is virtue and there's value in reading the words of those who have decided to walk out of that cave. They didn't just walk out of the cave. They kept going and they kept going and they kept going. But they kept coming back. For some reason, they found value in coming back and telling us their stories. They decided to go out there and say, hey, man, this is what I have found. This is what I have learned. This is what I have discovered. And they were willing to do that knowing that they may die for doing it. They believed it was that important. And this is what brought me here tonight, was thinking of, not in depth, but just kind of contemplating the perspective of Christ, the perspective of Buddha, the perspective of Ram Dass, the perspective of Robert Sapolsky, the perspective of Chomsky, the perspective of Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, Bob the Builder, whoever. Contemplating the words and the texts and the knowledge and the wisdom that has been gathered by people that are truly willing to live outside of the cave. Contemplating those perspectives, contemplating those frameworks for understanding the time and space that we live in. You know, Robert Sapolsky looking at things from a biological perspective and being one of the great geniuses, I believe, that's alive today. Of course, most people have never heard of him. And he would never say that about himself. But I can tell you, if I was ever in a room full of many thousands of people and I knew he was there, I would shut the fuck up and listen to him. And something he would say to cut through all the bullshit that we tell ourselves, to cut through all the stories in the cave that we've come up with, because we're in the cave and we see the shadow puppets on the wall. We say, oh, that's what this means. If you go down that dark hole down there, if you walk down that dark passage, this is what you're going to find. This is the path. This is the thing. And we tell stories about whoever walked down that path. We tell mythologies about this stuff that we don't know and understand. Someone like Robert Sapolsky would say, well, I don't know. What I do know is pain is painful. Pain is painful. If I know pain is painful, then pain is painful to that dog. Pain is painful to that cow. Pain is painful to Joe over here. Pain is painful to this person over here that I don't agree with in any way in the belief system that I have, but it doesn't matter because pain is painful, and why would I want them to experience that kind of suffering? That's why I consider a biologist like Robert Sapolsky to be enlightened, someone that I would shut up and listen to. And I had a whole much more that I think I would like to say on that or could say on that. And it's funny I'm leaving off with Robert Sapolsky in the context of Jesus and Buddha and, all the rest. But I think where I'm going with that is that these people have lived outside of the cave. They've gone out and been willing to push the limits of truth, been willing to push the limits of reality, been willing to push the limits of what we know, and they've been willing to talk about it and share about it and write about it. And someone like Robert Sapolsky boils it down to, and of course this is not everything he says, but hey man, I don't know all the stuff, but pain is painful, and so I'm going to go with that. And I'm going to get Lucy again. And then, perhaps you have someone like Buddha, who goes outside the cave and walks around for a while and decides that suffering is attachment. We become attached to things, and those things define us. And it's our attachment to those things that leads to suffering. And the only way through is to relinquish the desire and the attachment to it, as my friend Justin Carlyle says. So Buddha and all the rest that have been part of that lineage would say, be here now. Here, right now, the eternal now. Be here fully now. Be here fully honest in the now. And maybe someone like Jesus would say, hey, I'm the way, the truth, and the light, and you'll only get to the Father through me. And what that means to me is that inviting Christ within is to invite the divine within, that Christ is our divine inheritance. See what in the doctrine of it, you invite Christ within you. Christ within is Christ, the divine within, your divine inheritance. And then the great mystery that people love to just throw that word on things we don't understand. The great mystery is, okay, God within, God is all things interconnected. God is the one consciousness, the one source, the energetic resonance that we all come from. And where I'm going with that is that it makes sense on your journey to be curious about these people. It makes sense on your journey to in some ways continue to get out of the cave. We're still getting out of the cave, man. The cave is a really deep thing. And even you get out of the cave and you see the blue sky and the green trees and you see the creatures, and then you wonder, well, are these things, am I in another cave? Is this just another type of construct? Is it another type of thing? You know, a sort of simulation type thing? Doesn't have to be digital, just a thing. Am I in another thing? And then maybe people go further and they realize, oh, I'm in another thing. Oh, crap, our universe is in another thing. And the thing we call universe is actually this, you know, I don't know. I'm just thinking expansively and honestly. But I think it makes sense, rather than, maybe a good use of this word, rather than narcissistically assuming you know it all, or I know it all, or we know it all, or even these individuals that I'm speaking about knows it all. It makes sense to just walk the pathways that they have walked, to get a sense of what they have been willing to share. They were willing to walk that walk and to give their lives for it and to pass it on to us. Maybe it's good for us to take that in and digest it and make sense of it, and then to even go just a little further. Go a little further outside that cave. Go a little further. And that's what led me to this entire thought process tonight, was noticing that progressively I'm curious about what I truly believe, what I truly feel, what I truly sense, without beliefs, without ideas, without language, without the teachings of all these other people. Not to say these teachings aren't relevant. That's part of the big long lead into that, is simply it's important to walk those pathways. It's important to digest. It's important to not live in denial, to not say, I know it all, because that's a form of denial. That goes back to earlier in my rambling here. You know, to not be fully honest with yourself is to live in a sort of denial. And we don't want to be fully honest because, shit, man, if we're fully honest, we got to start asking and asking and asking. You just keep asking. You just keep going, which is, to me, it's amazing. To me, that's the journey. That's the glory. That's the beauty. Being an explorer, being a man, it's not just exploring this planet. It's exploring, it's seeking, it's allowing, and it's just saying, hey, I don't know. I don't know. But I want to go a little further. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Buddha. Thank you, Ram Dass. Thank you, Robert Sapolsky. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, everyone who has walked down a path of suffering and enlightenment so that we could grow through it. So I notice as of late, I'm real curious about the sensations in my body, the sensations of my brain that we call thoughts. Just real curious about the stories I tell myself, real curious about the ideas I carry with the beliefs I have, all the things I use to reference my perception of any given thing. When you start to be really honest about it, what do you know? What do you know? What can you claim? And I notice how much we claim things through the words of other people that have gone before us. Well, so and so said this, such and such said that, you know, this expert said this expert said that. But what can you say you know without filtering it through someone else's words or someone else's construct or someone else's perspective? And does knowing matter? Is it okay to be here? Is it okay to be with your breath? Is it okay to be with the warmth of the person closest to you? Is it okay to be with the beauty of the sunlight? Is it okay to be with the beauty of being? Is the fact that I get to be alive good enough? So many people get lost in what is my purpose? What is my purpose? What is my purpose? What is my meaning? I need to matter. I need to matter. I need to matter so damn bad. I'm willing to twist and turn and convulse and do all sorts of things to myself in order to matter. We want so badly to matter. So we distort the world, we distort our perception, we distort our thoughts, we distort our sensations, we distort our emotions so much so that we can matter in the context of the stories and mythologies and ideas that we've created in the cave to make sense of what we see, what we experience. But do we need to know it? Do you need to know more than the next guy? When, if you are being fully honest with yourself, you don't know much at all. Neither do I. So what I was thinking about, the picture in my head that led me down this pathway, that led me to hit the record button tonight, was thinking about why we lie. Had a long conversation earlier with a private client of mine about why we lie, why people distort reality, whatever reality is. We distort our shared experiences with other people because we're afraid. We live from a place of fear. We distort reality out of fear. People lie out of fear. Because telling the truth, being honest, is scary. You have to claim it. You have to stand by it. You have to stand in it. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to be able to speak it. So it's easier to live in denial. It's easier to actually shun those truth seekers, to live in that attachment, to live in the suffering of the attachment in the cave. But what I was thinking about in the picture in my head was just imagining all the humans on the planet and imagining how we're all walking around with this thing inside of us that we think of as consciousness, and we're all walking around with our own perception of our existence, our own perception of this life. And we're all walking around distorting it so that we can fit in with whatever it is that all the rest of these little nodes of existence are putting out there. And I was thinking, what would it be like if everyone just told their truth? Rather than saying, I know more than you, Therefore, I am correct and you are not correct. What if everyone said, hey, everybody, this is what I've discovered. I've been living on this planet for 30 years, and this is what I've discovered. I've been living on this planet for 92 years, and this is what I've discovered. I've been living on this planet for 7 years, and this is what I know. And what if everyone was like, oh, that's amazing. Tell me what you have learned by being a creature on this planet, walking around collecting data, living, breathing, feeling, experiencing. What have you learned? Tell me. I'm so excited to know. But what do? Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know. You're just a kid. You're just a child. You're just an adolescent. You're just a young adult. You're just an old person. I know. You should listen to me. I know the truth. I live in denial so much that I'm going to tell you the truth because I know it. And if you don't agree with me, I'm going to shun you, I'm going to judge you, I'm going to criticize you, I might even kill you. What a cowardly way to live. For us to live as a human species. Wouldn't it be amazing if we all could share our honest experience wandering around outside the cave? Hey, this is what I saw. Hey, this is what I felt. Hey, this is what I experienced. This is what I think. I don't know. This is how I see it. What do you think? That's interesting. Thank you for sharing that with me. What a good bit of insight. I think I'm going to shift my perception a little bit. Because I'm just one entity. And you're an entity and we're all somehow connected. Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be cool? If people just shared their honest perception and truth, and if we were willing to acknowledge it and receive it. Doesn't even mean we need to have a collective perception even. It means there's a mutually respectful and honest willingness to acknowledge and receive and to learn and grow from the fact that we're all these unbelievably complex, beautiful, beyond what we can even figure out beings, creatures, entities, whatever. We're these amazing things that are able to collect data, collect knowledge, collect experience, collect memory, tell stories. Imagine if we shared that. Imagine if we looked at each other with wonder, with amazement at the fact that we are all capable of doing so much. We're all capable of learning so much, feeling so much, experiencing so much, sharing so much. Man, it's our denial of ourselves so that we can fit. It's our denial so that we can stay in the cave and be okay with the cave, and we don't want to face the fear of walking out of the cave. It's our own denial, and the way we project that into the world, that creates that shared experience of judgment and denial and hurt and harm and pain. So I'm not telling you to believe what I believe. I'm not telling you need to think what I think. I'm not telling you that I even know what I'm talking about. I'm just telling you what I've experienced and what I've seen and what I feel. I'm telling you what's coming out of my mind in this present moment, and I hope you feel willing and able and brave enough to share your story in this place. What have you learned? What have you grown through? Are you being honest with yourself? Can you be honest with yourself? I would love to hear your honest story. I've definitely learned having the real privilege of getting to work with a lot of different human beings, a lot of different people. I've yet to hear someone who was fully honest that I didn't respect, that I didn't learn something from, that I didn't grow from. And I've heard some pretty dark stories and some pretty amazing stories, and everywhere in between. What you're hearing are artillery going off on Camp Pendleton right now, interestingly enough. So yeah, man, I hope you feel free to be honest with yourself, and I hope that you can understand that that's okay. And I hope you feel like you can tell someone about it and that they'll receive it and that they'll tell you their story. And that none of our stories need to outweigh the other. Just tell your story. I'd love to hear it. Thank you, everyone, for sharing this moment with me, sharing this experience with me. Oh my gosh, there's literally, the house is, I'm not in the house, I'm in my office, but the office is shaking because there's so much artillery going off so close by. And I was about to end, but what I'll say is, I'm experiencing the thunder of the artillery in my home office in Fallbrook, California. I don't experience the fear that goes with that sound. If you're a combat veteran, you know what that feeling is like. You know what that sound is like. You know the earth moving feeling of heavy artillery. If you've ever been in a place where you're on the receiving end of that artillery, you know the terror of that sound, the anticipation. Some of the greatest truth tellers I've ever met are combat veterans. Because talk about shattering reality, talk about shattering your own denial, talk about being forced to see a much broader picture. I believe our combat veterans are shamans in training. And I think they have great stories to tell. I think you should listen to their stories. There's a lot of wisdom there. You don't have to tell them you know more than they do, or you're better than them, or you know better, or whatever. Just listen. Listen to each other. All right, everybody. This is Dr. Mark Jesinoski. This is the Wizard Podcast. I really appreciate you sharing this space with me. Good night.